Good afternoon. Happy Thursday lunch. Thank you for joining me as the weeks go on and as I keep working to refine some things. This will be more streamlined, more efficient, and hopefully have a little bit more style and flair to it. Today, we're looking at leadership again, ongoing conversation on learning to grow or growing to lead. And today, we're going to look specifically kind of back at yourself via a little bit of understanding potentially some of my story. So today I thought I'd share a bit with you about some journeys and some aims. But before I do, let me just take you to a video clip that I think you will enjoy no matter where you're at in your walk and your journey in leadership.
Leadership is not a rank to be achieved. Leadership is a responsibility, and it's a responsibility to see those around us rise. There's no CEO on the planet who's responsible for the results. You're responsible for the people, who are responsible for the people, who are responsible for the people, who are responsible for the results. That's a difficult and different skill set.
This afternoon, what I want us to look at is kind of understanding the level of which we are responsible for our own leadership. And as John Maxwell says, leadership, everything related to it rises on fall and falls on that very thing on leadership. So everything rises and falls based on how we lead and what we do. So there's another quote I wanted to give you before we got going because it'll help us understand the perspective and the picture of who we are and what I'm doing and aiming to do as 9 degrees north, aiming people to lead. And this is a quote from Chris Hadfield, and you might be asking, who in the world is that? And I'll talk more about that in a second. But the quote is this: ultimately, leadership is not about glorious crowning acts. It's about keeping our team focused on a goal and motivated to do the best to achieve it, especially when the stakes are high and the consequences really matter. It is about laying the groundwork for others' success and then standing back and let them shine. So Chris Hadfield, that quote would make more sense when you understand that he was born in 1959 and he retired as a Canadian astronaut. You can imagine laying the groundwork for success related to high stakes situations. So here we understand that he fully understood what it meant to live laying the groundwork. So today, my goal, hopefully, is to inspire and move you a little bit from where you're at to hopefully become a better leader tomorrow. We become a better leader tomorrow by actively making changes and decisions today that's going to impact our own life so that we can actually bring forth a difference and a change. So in life, we often have the opportunity to arise because of certain situations that we didn't plan or ask for have come into our life. There are events that many feel that they have simply just landed on their laps. Those situations just happened to be. So I'm going to take that conversation a little bit and extrapolate it and expand it apart to help us understand just happened to land on their laps. So oftentimes their only justification for any situation they're in is just it's the way the universe and the energy and whatnot. That just so happens need to come to an understanding to where there's ultimately and there are often real situations of who is in charge that we need to look at. So what and one of our aims is going to look at the real clues and real keys that you and I put off as hints to someone of what really matters to us. And one of these topics and one of these conversations is given to us as two phrases. Maybe it's either seen as worldview or even seen as that person's value set or their value set perspective. And you might be thinking in a leadership conversation, Matt, I'm not sure where you're going with this. What I want you and I to understand is people will look to us based upon our worldviews, our value sets, and they're either going to be drawn or repelled from us based on those. So as we look at why this even matters, it brings us to a very good question. How you lead and make choices, how you make decisions is a reflection of who you are. And people will either decide to trust who you are or they're going to flee from who you are. So some of those daily choices that you and I face sometimes we recognize there is no option if I get to pick this up and do this task or those things that come into my life, because often they're handed down to us based upon the leadership that's in your life, whether it's in home, your workplace, even at school, or even the field of play. Your coach might be asking you to do X, Y, or Z, and you really don't want to, but you get to go participate and do that. So in leadership, we see a relationship that is not like any other relationship that we see, besides maybe one of the same relationship in communication. Both leadership and communication require two parties. They require two parties for the system to be effective. The reality is neither leadership or communication require two parties, but they wouldn't be leadership and they wouldn't be communication without them. So I could sit here and talk to myself all day long and no one listen, and I wouldn't get anywhere. So we recognize in communication, we have the speaking party and we have the listening party. In leadership, we have the directive or the visionary or the commanding party, and we have the second half of the picture that fulfills the role of the first and makes that leader now effective. And that is the person that's labeled the doer. I think it's interesting if you would ever look at my Facebook profile under who you are, it's just listed there as the doer. Um, I understand that there's action that happens in life and movement that comes in life that happens because we are doer. The person that just sits and wrings their hands and doesn't know what to do doesn't move very far or go very far. So in communication, we have these two parties. One's affected by the communicator, and the other is by the listener who absorbs and then does something with what the leader's asking. So in life, the best leaders are like the best communicators. The one who listens more and speaks less is typically the stronger communicator. And in this case, we'd understand the one that can listen more and be led up, be led by those around them that are also leading under them. When they listen to those individuals, they become a stronger leader. So many leaders have become who they are because of opportunities that have been placed around them. I've thought about this a lot. I've reflected a lot back over the years, actually, of I wonder what so and so really actually thought of me when I was 12, when I was 15, when I was 21, when I was 35, when I was 40, when I was 45. I wonder what X really thought about me. And in a few moments, I'm going to go through some names of people that I've listed as wonder what they saw in me then. So now allow me to pause here for a second and allow me to press into the ultimate source of responsibility for all those things that fall in your lap. And in this case, this will illustrate to you what I mean. And hopefully you have understanding in either the hearing or seeing of what I mean by someone else's worldview. Worldview is a value set decision making anchor that is what people will choose or make decision process thought out of. So we're not going to enter into a philosophical wrangling or wrestling match here around the conversation, but sometimes you'll hear people use words like the powers around me or the universe or destiny has set it forth or it was just in the cards. Whatever their flavor of conversation is this morning, I want you to understand that is the strength and standing point of a person's first coming forth of how they are leading. So this morning, I want you, or this afternoon, I want you to hear that. How am I leading? What are the vibes that I'm putting off as I choose choice words to help people? I got to stop doing air quotes, so they don't really matter. What matters forth the most is how you make choice and how you evidence that choice to people is how you also will either win or lose followers. So your worldview, your well, which stores all your ethics and morals and understanding, your anchoring of absolutes or non-absolute truth will either be the magnet that draws or it'll be the magnet that's flipped on its head and is polar opposite with someone and repels people from following who you are. Your worldview is how others see you is either wishy-washy or firm or anchored. So I'm just going to give you a slice of my story. It's not much of my story. A few weeks ago, a new friend of mine asked, Matt, kind of give me your whole story. Like, I want the whole story. And I'll be honest, it took over 2 hours of a Zoom call dialogue. But here, a bit of my story is one that's a story anchored in grace. And I was fortunate to be raised by a Christian father and a Christian mother who anchored into biblical standards and loved who God was and his redeeming grace for us. That obviously has played a significant role in anchoring into myself, becoming who I am. By God's grace, I am who I am, and nothing else. No power, no vibe, no wishy washy. My ultimate place in life is to give authority to the one who is the ultimate, and that's the creator, the sustainer, the author of both my life, your life, the trees outside, the wind that blows, and the space that we live in creation's understanding of how earth was brought forth. So, what more specifically, these individuals have played vital roles in building me to be the leader I am based upon the leadership that they poured out into me. So, not to embarrass them and not to go too long into this discussion or dialogue, but I think it's important if I can label some people for you who were leaders, maybe in their own right, without saying I wasn't really a strong leader, I wasn't the best leader, but I did offer or leave off influence. If you're a person that's leaving off influence, then you're a person who's also leading. So I paid some tribute to my parents, but my parents were more than just parents. My parents were the parents that led in such a way that they were also our friends. They were also the parent that didn't matter what you had going on, you could come back and talk to them about it. They left that space, but they understood that they were my parent first, my friend second. So therefore, they would offer hard correction and direction and discussion that they needed to do to parent me, to disciple me to be who I needed to be. But the other factor of people that poured into my life, and I was thinking through either teachers in the classroom. One eighth grade teacher poured into my life. My eighth grade year, I didn't get to run track in eighth grade. I had a grade that wasn't satisfactory for my parents in the previous report card. And it wasn't a grade that was a failing grade. It was just a grade that didn't hold the standard at which we sought forth. And it was my understanding if the grade wasn't up, I didn't get to participate. But this teacher was my eighth grade science teacher that was offering a hands-on, really interactive class. But this teacher, Mrs. Lapum, was also my track coach. And after each eighth grade track meet, she would come and give me the prognosis of the meet and help me understand what I missed out on and where I would have scored and where I would have won to help me give a better taste that I better work harder in the future. But tied to that eighth grade track program was then also three significant men who not only poured into me to be a great athlete, but they taught me how to be a great coach. They taught me how to take a life of an athlete that might just be doing the motions and help increase within them the ability to see within themselves to find greatness. So, Mark Merlo, Larry Adams, and Gary Kuzno, thank you for all you've done to pour into me to even bring me to the place where these conversations today take place, because I know we all trained men and women, young boys and young girls to pursue life and to chase life and to be great runners of life, not just around a circle. So some significant other conversation people are people that probably don't even know who they are as men that left the greatest impact. One, Paul, maybe this conversation would get to you someday, but to understand the ongoing nature of a person who will live authentic Christian faith, pursuing God above all other things to show genuine joy in who God is as creator and sustainer in all things. The other three men were all actually related to me as employers, but more than employers, they were mentors. They mentored through their leadership, but they also mentored through their daily leading and directive of giving tasks. So Dan Cummings, who is no longer with us, he passed away just a year older than I am today of colon cancer, believed in me and instilled into me a deep love and a deep drive for pursuing joy in God above all things. Whether it was preaching or teaching or leading or guiding or counseling, what it meant to pursue something with a deep rooted passion that only God can bring forth. So, Dan, I thank you for that, even though you can't hear or you're not here to hear that, but you are the person that I think of before I enter a pulpit, because you've given me an understanding of what's before the throne that we preach. It's back to God we give his words that hopefully help other men and women on their journey. Doug Schmidt, I hope that maybe this gets to you at some point for understanding what you didn't even know you did. And that's offering simple nudges from afar to somebody that just needed encouragement and just needed to keep taking the step to put a foot in front of the other. Each of these men offered to me the background to continue to build into me who I am. I don't lead this discussion on 9 Degrees North's page to land your marketing job. I lead this discussion to make you and I better men, better women, better husbands, better wives, better friends, better neighbors, because we lead people out of the understanding of I have the ability to empower with them a place where I get to encourage and push in, but then step aside. So the last two men were men that I worked for in a day that I never would have ever envisioned, besides God put me there. Chance didn't put me there. Fate didn't put me there. God placed me there. Both Dr. Skilling and Tim Throne were the men that I got to serve under as they ran the role of superintendent of Oxford Community Schools. Both men let me speak into their lives, lead into their lives, counsel into their lives, and serve alongside of them as they made important value set decision making to lead, grow, and encourage students to be better students. Dr. Skilling is a friend and a boss. You understood how to lead and empower. And then the hard thing for most leaders, how to step aside and let the other person hold the reins and hold the power to bring forth the finishing success of what was necessary. To Tim Throne, an example of leadership by both visioning and holding on to value set. Holding on to value set in such a way that it was the binding force and the power that you trusted in the other person to run the ball, to carry the ball, to get the ball across the goal line. As a leader, I came to understand pastorally, you never learn to shoot or you'll never learn to score if you've never been past the ball. So I'm asking you as you listen today to be somebody that leads out of an example of passing the ball. Leading out of an example of passing the ball gives somebody that maybe you don't have the most confidence in the opportunity to put forth their hands and catch the pass that's coming. If anyone really knew me as a child and knew me as my parents did, it is surprising that any opportunity has ever come forth to me. I was the kid that grew up happy to play in the mud of a cattail pond in the backyard, more content to run out on a rope swing that cleared the clearance of 60 to 80 feet below me and to trust that that rope would hold. Anyone that knows me well would understand that I would have never paused to write a podcast manuscript to lead a conversation like this unless somebody really knows what drives me, and that's to see others grow and others find Christ and to lead out of their Christ likeness, the changing force that brings forth hope to those around us. So today I bring you this as an encouragement to be the doer that you are, that God's built you to be a rising impact into someone's life around you. I read to you just a few that really aren't an exhaustive list of men and women that poured into my life, but to understand that there are significant people that bring forth change to build you to be who God wants you to be today. So I'm asking you today to be the builder, not the one being built on, but be the builder. Be the one that God can be used and empowered to work through to bring change and hope to others' lives around you. Thank you for joining me today for lunch. I hope you've enjoyed the dialogue and the conversation, and I trust that you will understand what it means to be one of those people that brings change to the world around you by bringing forth hope based on the one true hope we have, and that is in Christ alone. Have a great day. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening.